Once upon a time, there was a terrified trapeze net. Now that's not the best of traits for something that's meant to catch a falling star and ease her safely to the ground, is it? Let's face it, if your daddy's hands are trembling and his voice wobbling you can do it, you don't tend to have the urge to hurl yourself off the swimming pool side in an attempted swan dive, aged not even 6. Perhaps those brutish swimming instructors who pick up unsuspecting toddlers by their arms and drop them in the deep end to sink or swim do have the best idea. But that's not really an option for trapeze artistes, not if the circus wanted to keep their insurance policy anyway. So the terrified trapeze net was tethered to its fate, however essentially unsuited it was to it. Life can play that ironic game, can't it? So there it was, stretched out under the high wire and the well-worn swings in the big top of a small travelling circus that was well past its heyday. And the trapeze artiste, who was well past her heyday too, was in truth enough of a reason for the trembling in the terrified trapeze net's fibres to never quite come to a stop. Because she was no youthful angel tumbling lightly from heaven, but a stocky lady who tended to land heavily and had displaced a lower back disc more than once. And these days, that could happen when she was simply getting into her costume. And the sparkly feathered corset, well, these days it was a welcome restraint. It is a simple rule of both heaven and circuses. I'm afraid the heavier the angel, the harder the fall. Our terrified trapeze net knew this from experience. It had learnt to stay in a state of permanent self-bracing, trying to be ready and deny its constant trembling. It would keep itself vigilant and alert by bombarding itself with questions like, what if I break on impact? What if the weight of her makes me sag so far that I'm stretched out of shape beyond any hope for bounce back myself? And what if I happen to unhook myself and collapse like an inwards catapult, rolling her up into a suffocating ball? These were all scenarios it pictured, over and over and far more besides, on repeat play, 24/7. What the terrified trapeze net couldn't see in all this catastrophizing was that any one of the million or more terrifying scenarios that it sketched would have meant the end of it being a terrified trapeze net. The trembling would then stop. In fact, a catastrophe could have been the very best thing for it. As I mentioned, life can play ironic games. And catastrophizing is a funny thing. It feels like it's logical. If X, then Y. Add 2 to 3 and we'll have 5. But fear can look a lot like logic. So X can lead to imagining possibilities that are not at all probable. And 2 plus 3 equals 5 seconds to self-destruction, a bomb on its last countdown, ticking. 5, 4, 3. The trick, I am very happy to tell you, is to don't be silly, catastrophizing fear away as soon as it starts strutting about like it owns the joint. Which does take guts, I'll grant you. Fear can be the biggest circus showman if you let it take a hold. So please, don't. Needless to say, our trembling trapeze net was not made of guts. It was a poor synthetic thing, and to be fair, some of its fears were founded. Sometimes, when the trapeze artiste took a tumble, the net would dip so deep and low that bets were being taken by the clowns and human cannonball about when her backside would leave an imprint the size of a large apple pie in the sawdust floor. And more than once she'd got tangled up in the net while it was more focused on shouting, "I've got you! I've got you!" instead of just holding her. And this led, on more than one occasion, to a costume twisting awkwardly and what can best be described as an eye-popping wardrobe malfunction. "You stupid net! You will either disgrace me or be the death of me." The trapeze artiste had just wriggled free and was rearranging her chest as the lion tamer sauntered on in. With a whip at his hip, hair flowing, and an attitude that suggested he'd won the lottery some years ago, he did check the sawdust floor for any apple pie imprints. He was a man, after all. "I'd have thought you'd have been grateful to that old net, however it catches you," laughed the lion tamer. "I've caught myself with my whip more times than I can remember. But that's all part of the game, frankly, and I'd rather it was that way." He winked then, and the trapeze artiste suddenly found herself rearranging her hair. The terrified trapeze net mumbled, "I'm not so old," to itself. "I'd rather it was there, of course," responded the artiste, checking her fake eyelashes were still on. "But it's just not reliable. I don't dare do half the moves I'd like to make. And I find myself thinking, what if it breaks on impact? What if the weight of me makes it sag so far that it's stretched out of shape beyond any hope of a bounce back? And what if it happens to unhook itself and collapse like an inwards catapult, rolling me up into a suffocating ball? I don't even know where these thoughts come from." "Ah," thought the terrified trapeze net, with a silent, guilty whistle. "How often has it caught you?" The lion tamer cut through the woman's 5, 4, 3. "Well, yes, every time," she said. "But," and she spewed on forth, 3, 2, 1. "So would I," the lion tamer said. The trapeze artiste heard him. Her knee trembled. Oh, boom. Behind the flirting couple, the terrified trapeze net was now feeling rather hard done to, misjudged. It catastrophized in order to help, to stay alert and vigilant, to save the trapeze artiste's life. Let's not sugarcoat what was essentially an emergency service. It loathed its job, the responsibility and the risk of it. The least it deserved was some gratitude for keeping the act going, keeping life and limb intact, in fact, in a move that it never realized it was capable of. A corner rope, unwound and snaked, fast uncoiling, smacking the back of the artiste's legs as it flew past. "See?" She snapped straight out of the lion tamer's energy then, instantly. "It hates me! If that had happened a few minutes before, I'd probably have been killed." Possibly," said the lion tamer, a gentle correction, which was lost in the strange and shocked "what just happened" energy. Certainly it was a bizarre moment. A lot more could have been said. A cascade of terror, another fear vomit, a crack of a whip even for dramatic effect. But instead, the bizarre continued. The lion tamer said nothing, but chose simply to coil up the snake of rope and put it back in its place. He was well acquainted with wild danger, and also with the best energy needed to handle it. Utterly at ease, he never budged an inch from the core of calm that he had, over the years, cultivated in his belly, just below his navel. Now, don't get lost there, tempting as it may be. That point in all our bodies is a place where whips and fears and even bodies aren't needed. just the very deepest sense of yourself. By contrast, the trapeze artist's belly had been packed so full of fluttering moths for so long now that they had built a nest from sawdust and ponytail hair and stale dry popcorn. The nest now blocked her throat, so all she could do was gasp shrill worries. Her soul had been trapped high up in that nest too. "Shush," the lion tamer said on his return, kissing her for the first time before she could speak again. Beyond the sawdust in her mouth, he tasted starlight. And that shut her up. He took her by the hand then and led her to the big top ladder steps in silence. Start your act again and dare to make all the moves you'd like to make. With a hand squeeze, he placed hers onto the ladder. She seemed almost in a trance, a sort of dream, so he resisted a buttock squeeze as she began to climb. This was not the moment to wake her up. When she reached the ladder top, she hung in his gaze, finding the bar by instinct and habit, and swinging out without thinking. A point just below her navel seemed connected to the man, and for the first time in years she stopped looking beyond her feet to see if the net was still there, ready to catch her just in case. Her hands pulled up on the bar with strength from just below her navel, and her toes pointed like a child on a perfected swan dive. And then, in a move that she hadn't dared since she once performed it in Paris in the moonlight, she closed her eyes and tipped herself backwards, arching full circle, both hands and fear-free, belly up into the stars, free of fear and of its limits. In this glorious position, she had no chance to see the lion tamer rolling up the terrified trapeze net. She didn't even hear the net's screams of terror, which she usually heard, on some level at least. "What are you doing? You can't possibly, you'll kill her. I have to stay vigilant and alert. I have a job to do." "I am sorry," said the lion tamer, "but so do I." As the trapeze artiste lost and found herself in this ease she'd found for the first time, or perhaps lost long ago, the lion tamer teased a guideline from the big top's pinnacle and swung it over to within her reach. She fashioned an improvised finale of a one-legged upside-down star hang, then slid effortlessly down like a snake charmer's lover, landing lightly on tiptoe in the sawdust. "Did you see?" she was gasping, girly, but also old woman wise. The question came from her belly. "I did. And did you?" The lion tamer's question was completely lost in the what just happened energy of the moment, and also in a funny coughing fit, like when you clear a bit of popcorn from the back of your throat.